We are in an era where we have smartphones. With our phones, we have so much information that's available to us. Every desktop computer have significant abilities, not just to communicate, but also to be able to conceal information that will be critically important for law enforcement.
So the safety minister finds it deeply concerning that people nowadays can communicate through cell phones and the internet and computers so efficiently without the government having an eye on it. Well, I find it concerning that Sri Lankan-born Gary Boy over here is a Canadian MP. The Liberals in one short year has now Canada leading the West in government-controlled bills and surveillance apparatus. And now new bills would allow the government to intrude on users' privacies and boot them off the internet if they don't like it. Or as they call it, if they find you to be a security threat, the definition of which is ambiguous at best. I mean, is this video considered a security threat to the government and to Gary Boy over here? And will it land me in jail? Who knows? But so far we got C-8, the telecom security bill that would allow the government, through secret ministerial orders, to boot you off the internet. C-9, the online hate speech act that will land you in jail for Facebook posts and Twitter memes, or maybe if you just quote the Bible. I wish I was making this up, by the way. And now C-22, a perversive bill. But what is it? How does it work? What does it mean for you? And will you be joining me in jail? My name is Eli Daniel, and this is the Right Call Report. Like, share, subscribe. All interactions on this video helps push the truth out and perhaps someday break that CBC-induced coma that sadly so many Canadians are under. And if you're tired of that same old government and media BS and finally want some common sense commentary, well, smash that subscribe button because you're in the right place. So today we're going to be looking at Bill C-22, diving into the provisions, what it does, what it doesn't do, how it affects you, and also, should we be trusting the government with this? And my little inkling is that based on Gary Boy over here, nope, you shouldn't be trusting him. And then, big surprise, the government decided to appeal the Federal Appeals Court's ruling that found the Emergency Measures Act to be unwarranted all the way to the Supreme Court. That actually came as a surprise to me because I called the fact that Carney would not meddle in this. It was his get out of free jail card. However, apparently he wants to make this one about him, so let's look into this as well. And finally, we're going to end into another crazy liberal take of the day. This one's kind of hilarious, so you got to stick around. You don't want to miss this. I've been tracking all the government bills that the Liberals have tabled since, well, pretty much 1 year, and I find it deeply concerning that every single bill seems, at least at face value, to be about more government control, more usurping of freedoms and liberty from people, and just pulling the blanket towards them, giving them free pass over everything. So we got C2. This is a security and border bill. Obviously, they try to push the border part of it to make it seem like it was all nice, fine, and dandy. However, it turns out that it also granted crazy security surveillance power to the government. So the government freaked out when people started pushing back, and they decided to cut the bill in half, keeping just the border stuff on one end and all the security apparatus stuff into, well, Bill C-22, which we're going to discuss. Then we got C-8, a telecom bill that would effectively allow the ministers of the government to boot you off the internet secretly without a court warrant or order. It would just like screw getting yourself banned from platforms like TikTok and Facebook. No. You're just going to be booted from the internet globally. You cannot access the web anymore. We got C-9, the Online Hate Speech Act, the one that obviously if you say something mean on the internet that is considered hateful, which is super broad and undefined, or so much as quoting religious texts, it doesn't matter which one. Name your Abrahamic religion, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. You're going to jail. I'm not making this up. Oh, by the way, up to life in prison. Yeah, life. You're going to jail because of a Facebook post for the rest of your life. And now today, Bill C-22, basically, you want your data? You ain't got access to it anymore. You want to be private online? You ain't got access to that anymore. You want to keep things, to yourself? You can't do that anymore. Government wants to know everything. Big Brother wants to spy. It's like this kind of voyeur fetish that the government has, except it's insidious and lands you in jail.
But take a moment and consider this. If Bill C-22, the Lawful Access Act of 2026, becomes the law, the government of Canada will be able to secretly order Apple to build in a capability into its infrastructure to allow Canadian law enforcement and national security folks to track every iPhone, every iPad, every Apple Watch, every Apple AirPod, and every AirTag in real time. Then they'll be able to require Apple to confirm whether they provide you any services. Then they can go to a justice of the peace and get an order without actually believing that a crime has been or will be committed, requiring Apple to hand over every device identifier for every device that you use with their services. That's the digital ID for your iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, AirPod, Apple TV, AirTag. With that information, they can go back to the judge and get an order, again without actually believing that a crime has been or will be committed, requiring Apple to give them the moment-by-moment locations of all your devices. Oh, and that secret order also required Apple to keep your location history for a full year, so cops can get that too. Is that a power we want Canadian police and law enforcement to have?
About no, that's not a power I want anyone to have, less the government out of all of them. The group of individuals I trust the least, actually, with my safety and privacy. So what does Bill 22 do? In short. So Gary, or any other Minister of Public Safety if he's axed and canned one day, can order secretly to install any device, equipment, or software, which means he can force companies to install backdoors in devices. Why should you care? Well, aside from the fact that it means they can spy on you and collect all your data, it also means it's a security risk, just to begin with. Because any backdoor, any vulnerability, whether it's unknown or purposely created, allows foreign adversaries, foreign governments, foreign intelligence agencies to exploit it, or just hackers, just criminals. You create a vulnerability, it can be exploited. So that means all your devices now are less secure. May I add, most tech companies go to great lengths, especially Apple, they're very data and privacy focused. They go to great lengths to protect your data and your privacy. That's the whole cornerstone. A data leak is catastrophic. Well, now imagine they'll be forced to reduce security so that Gary boy over here can secretly look at your text messages, your pics. I mean, maybe he's got a fetish. I don't know, but it's concerning as hell. So that's one. Two, it will allow the government warrantless access to your information. So just based on suspicion alone that something bad is being done, and again, that's broad and undefined. What is a suspicion? I suspect Gary here to not be working on behalf of Canadians. Does it mean I have access to his data? No, and I wouldn't want to, although, no, I wouldn't want to. No, not at all. Well, that is a much lower threshold that exists right now. The government already has the power to access your data, but they need a court order. They need a warrant because they need to actually have foundation to invade your privacy and go against the Charter of Rights and Freedom, which guarantees your protection from unreasonable searches and seizures. So this is an affront to the Charter of Rights and Freedom right in there. 3, you can demand all electronic service providers to turn over data, including websites, banks, hotels, telecoms, hosting companies, social media, and more. That's right. So you go one night to a hotel, say you want some time to decompress, you go to the Hilton or Motel 8, whatever is in your budget, and well, that company needs to retain that data, and now all of a sudden, Gary can ask for it. They can effectively map a mosaic of information on you to know everything about you, your whereabouts, your communications, who you talk to, what you buy, what you do, your preferences. It is insidious. What the hell? This is, again, a voyeur's wet dream. This means no more anonymity online. Forget it. Gone. It also means faceless accounts or people that just want to be private online is also gone. And if you combine that with the ongoing narrative that they're starting to push to lay the framework that kids are unsecure online and parents are not to be trusted with the safety of their kids. As such, we must pass age verification for kids to access social media platforms, which then would require all social media companies to comply. And the only way they can comply is by asking you for a government-approved ID to be uploaded, to be verified. Well, what does it mean? It means now that even if you have an anonymous account that you used to shitpost, for lack of better words, well, the company is going to know who it belongs to, and then combine that with C-22, which allows the government to just ask for all the data. All of a sudden, there goes your privacy, my man. They know you. So, could this be used by governments, unscrupulous governments, who want to prevent dissent and prevent people from holding them accountable, to be targeted? Because that's one thing you're seeing right now in the UK, where people get jailed for posts online, upwards of 15,000 per year, may I add. Well, a lot of people are turning towards faceless accounts. I personally know a huge one. I've had a discussion with him before, and he runs one of the largest ones in the UK. And when I spoke with him over Zoom, obviously, he wouldn't show his face. And the reason why is that this is very obvious. I got to protect my anonymity lest I end up in jail. Well, that will be gone in Canada completely. You cannot be secret anymore. And 4, and this is kind of messed up too, the bill will allow the government to use illegally obtained hacks and leaks for investigations. So that means that if a hacker illegally obtain your information. Well, that information now can be used to prosecute you if the information is of dubious nature, of course. This goes against what we have right now, and of course, against poisonous fruit of the tree, effectively evidence obtained illegally from being used against you. And it makes me think we have like this intelligence network called Five Eyes, right? So it's Canada, the US, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And let's be honest, it's currently used to kind of bypass a lot of domestic laws that prevent intelligence agencies from spying on its own citizens. I mean, if Canada wanted to spy on Canadians, technically they're not allowed, but if they received information that was shared by, say, the CIA in the US or MI5 or MI6 in the UK, well, all of a sudden, well, it's not them that spied on you. They just obtained information from their trusty intelligence partner. Well, let's push this further. These trusty intelligence partners now can hack your stuff, leak it, and that information now can be used against you as well. It just strengthens this entire surveillance apparatus.
That is why last week our government introduced Bill C-22, the Lawful Access Act. C-22 creates the legal framework for a modernized lawful access regime in Canada, something that law enforcement and our security services have been asking for decades.
Well, no shit, Gary. Tell me which agency doesn't want to have lawful access to information without having to pass through pesky things like courts and to obtain warrants, which this bill conveniently allows your government to do.
This bill is informed by the views of stakeholders and parliamentarians who voiced serious concerns with the former Bill C-2. We listened to what they said.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You got caught trying to pass tyrannical rules in your Bill C-2, and then you lost-faced and decided, you know what, the only way to pass this is to cut C-2 in half, pass C-2 on its own, and then try again under a different moniker, different text, different wording, and perhaps updated means to ram it through Parliament without people realizing, say, I don't know, getting a majority or just changing the language so it becomes obfuscated. Yes, no, this is not a new bill that you listened to the people and amended it because they had concern. No, this is just a new way to try to bamboozle people.
And this new legislation, C-22, balances the needs of law enforcement with privacy rights of Canadians.
Yes, because Canadians losing privacy rights is exactly balancing privacy rights. This kind of doublespeak is insane. But it sure does look like it's balancing law enforcement rights. And by rights, I mean power. And by power, I mean giving them carte blanche to do whatever they want.
I want to be very clear about what C-22 is not. It is not about the surveillance of honest, hardworking Canadians going on about their daily lives.
Reality check. If they aren't targeting, as he says, ordinary Canadians, then where's the need to have to bypass judicial warrants and courts in order to see your data? What's the rush? What's the need? If you're not targeting regular people, courts will have no issues giving you the warrant for you to access criminals' data. But no, that's not what you're trying to do. And when you say stuff like that, it shows your true motive.
Is, however, about keeping Canadians safe in the online space. It ensures that law enforcement can obtain timely, lawfully authorized communications or information when they need it, and only from select electronic service providers.
Yeah, again, because courts are such a hassle, right? Those pesky checks on governments to prevent you guys from abusing your power. We got to get rid of those. Please, fast.
It brings our laws in line with the Supreme Court rulings to make clear that law enforcement and CSIS can receive tips, ask for information to be provided voluntarily, or use publicly available information to investigate crime and threats to our security. In these cases, a warrant will not be necessary.
No, it's because you got caught using illegally obtained data before and you got a little slap on the wrist. And now you want to amend the Criminal Code of Canada to give you the power to continue to do such a thing without getting a little slap on the wrist.
So Bill C-22 is a package of targeted reforms that tackles the world as it is, not as it was.
What he meant to say there is that the internet has become a little bit of a thorn in our foot and we want to fix that. So, we've clearly seen that we can't trust you with the truth, but you're asking Canadians to trust you with these new autocratic rules and that you will not abuse those new powers that you've been given? You know, it kind of reminds me of the time when you got caught on a secret recording with one of your tenants talking about the gun buyback and how much you didn't believe in it, you realized it wouldn't do anything, and that if you could do it all over again, you would do it differently. But because Carney asked you to do it, you had no choice. We love a yes man. Or I should say, Carney loves yes men. That we know for a fact.
Look, I'll tell you, if I were to redo this from the beginning, like I'm picking up where it was left off. Right? And
but you have the power to roll back.
But this is the mandate I was given by Carney to complete this.
Because you guys look like fools rolling, stepping back.
And not revisit this. Listen, if I told you, if I were to redo this one, from scratch, right? I would have a very different approach.
I mean, he doesn't even believe in what he's peddling. This is a man with no convictions, and those are the most dangerous individuals, even more so when they're in government. And speaking of dangerous things in government, well, the federal government is going to appeal the Emergency Act usage all the way to the Supreme Court. To remind people, in 2022, during a peaceful protest in Ottawa, Justin Trudeau enacted the Emergency Measures Act. To give you a sense of the gravity of such an act, it used to be called the War Measures Act. It had only been used 3 times before: World War I, World War II, and the October crisis, when we literally had terrorists kidnapping government officials and foreign diplomats, putting bombs in place, offing them off, and causing actual terrorism in Canada. Those laws were designed for existential, actual, imminent threats to the Canadian government and the country as a whole, not for a freaking protest, bro. So they used it to arrest certain people without a warrant and detain them indefinitely, freeze bank accounts and halt financial transactions, so people were left completely stranded with no way of paying anything, compel private companies to help the government, such as forcing tow truck operators to tow vehicles that were blockading. That's right. If you did not agree as a private citizen with a private company to help the government in their demands under the Emergency Measures Act, you were exposing yourself to jail time or $5,000 fines. Yeah. It allowed them to target public areas and blockade it from access, effectively infringing on your rights of movement and assembly. So, aka, any place that is designated as now blockaded, you're not allowed to be there. No matter if it's public, accessible, you're not allowed. Your country, your land can be there. And this, by the way, was on a national scope. This was not limited to Ottawa. The laws apply Canada-wide. Now, of course, this was incredibly troubling at a time, and subsequent to its usage, various groups, organizations, and private citizens sued the government in federal court to challenge the usage of such a law. Well, a federal court found the law to have been unlawfully used, meaning the government lacked reason to enable the law. They abused it and gave themselves powers that they were not entitled to. Now, obviously, like any autocrat, being held to account is not a good thing. It's a bad look. It makes you look like a tyrant, and rightfully so. So Freeland at the time and Trudeau decided to appeal it in the Federal Appeal Court. Well, a Federal Appeals Court made up of a board of 3 appeals judge found 2 things. 1, it refused to hear the appeal because it found that the government lacked standing in doing so. And 2, it upheld the lower court's decision that the federal government did not have the right to use the act in that moment, that it was unjustly used. So, end of story, right? All of this happened under the watch of Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland. They're gone. They're not there anymore. What a beautiful opportunity for Mark Carney to just brush it under the rug and wash his hands clean of this kerfuffle that it was. He could simply blame the failure of the past government on past leaders and say, hey, I wasn't a part of this. Forget the fact that he penned in an op-ed in the newspaper a piece that said that he highly recommended that the government indeed enact the the Emergency Measures Act to clear up the protests. Whatever, we'll just memory hole this one, we'll forget it, we'll give it a pass. Buddy, you're in the clear. But for me now, that becomes a mind-boggling decision that he appealed it to the Supreme Court, because now it means he endorses it. He gives it a seal of approval. In fact, he basically says the government had the right to use it, and he makes it about him. Now he can't run away from it. Now, if the Supreme Court either refuses to hear the appeal or hears the appeal and still finds the usage of it to have been unjustified, now that's a mark on him. It means he condones it. And if it gets rebuked, then it means he owns that too. Which really makes you wonder, why would he do that? Like, why the risk? So to me, it has to be one of four things. He knows that Supreme Court Justice Wagner over here, which is a staunch liberal, and a bunch of them are also pretty liberal, are just going to side with him. It's already preordained. He knows the outcome. They're going to side with him. May I add, by the way, that Juno News posted this. There's an anti-vax mandate nursing organization that is calling for the Supreme Court Justice to be recused from ruling on the federal government's appeal of the Emergency Act. The reason why is because Justice Wagner right here, a Supreme Court Justice, of course, has made publicly very strong arguments and comments showing a clear bias during the Rona era. Let's go with that. So, if he showed a bias then about the measures being in place, perhaps he has contempt for the people who challenged it. And now the government enacted clearly illegal acts to contain those people that he might disagree with. That's called a bias, and a judge should recuse himself from it. So number two of why he would want to do this. Well, if he wins, maybe he wants to create a precedent to make it so that the government can indeed enact these draconian measures for simple, mundane nuisances in the future. Or maybe whenever there's a manufactured crisis. 3, it could also just be that he personally ideologically really believes that the government had the right to do so, which to me is even more troubling, but at least, hey, he heeded my warning of have some convictions, buddy. I can fundamentally disagree with the convictions of an individual, but at least I'll always respect the fact that they have convictions. The one thing I despise is someone who flip-flops, someone that just goes with the whim, that don't stand for anything. Or 4, maybe there's a bigger cover-up at play here that I'm not seeing and I'm not yet fully capable of grasping. And that has me really worried. So today's mildly retarded take of the day, we got diehard American Democrat liberal socialist Brian Crescestine, don't know how to say it, don't care. So he apparently fled America to come to Montreal, my hometown. Yes, sir. All right. And he posted this. Trump did this. I heard 2 Canadians next to me complaining about how Trump is making Canada unaffordable. Trump is screwing the world. And you can see right here, he's gassing up his car. He's put 37 liters and it cost him $72. It's actually probably going to be considerably worse because this was last week. To which I replied, of course. Did Trump impose these taxes on fuel too? 19.2 cents per liter of provincial fuel tax. 10 cents per liter of federal excise tax. 25 cents per liter of carbon tax. Yes, guys. He's in Quebec. Quebec still has a carbon tax. That's right. It predates the federal government's carbon tax, and it is independent from the federal government's carbon tax, and they kept it on. Quebec is the only place in freaking Canada that still has that, all right? We're just as bad as California, just with shittier weather. And French. Et c'est ma langue maternelle en passant. Je dis ça, je dis rien. 3 cents per liter in Montreal transit tax, because of course the city of Montreal has got to get a share. Running the SDM properly, not in the cards. Let's just tax the person. 5% of GST, goods and service tax, and 9.975% of Quebec sales tax. Look, if you're going to be in Canada, at least try not to be American about it. It cracks me up. We're going to blame Trump on everything. It's Trump's fault for everything, let alone the fact that overnight, the Canadian government, if it wanted to, could axe 40% of the cost of fuel and give reprieve to the people. It's true, they can't control global fuel prices, but they sure as hell can control apparently 40% of the cost of fuel. It is insanity. And this affects, by the way, everything. It trickles down into every strata of society. Food, transport, travel, building, you name it. Fuel costs, important. But overall, at this point, all of these bills passing and the fact that we still have a liberal government in place makes me really realize this sad point, but it should become pretty obvious by now that the biggest threat to Canada isn't Russia, it's not China, it's not India, it's definitely not the United States and Donald Trump. It's not even our own government. And that takes a lot for me to say. It's Canadians themselves. Because being uninformed and unable to understand what's going on right now allows the government to continue to pull the blanket over your eyes and push you a narrative that is false, and you eat it up, buy it more, ask for more. Govern me harder, daddy. However, we do have someone that could come and to an extent, fix the situation. His name is Pierre Poilievre, and if you haven't yet seen the interview with Joe Rogan, I broke it down into highlights. I will put the video right here. Highly recommend you go watch it. If you don't want to sit through 3-hour conversation where they end up chit-chatting an hour and a half about MMA, which is pretty cool, but nonetheless, if it's not your cup of tea, watch that video right now. You'll get the highlights, the summary, and some decent commentary around it. But for the time being, my name is Eli Degno, and I'll see you guys next time.